Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to the channel. Well, today we're talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds Episode 2, entitled Children of the Comet. I'm loving Strange New Worlds. It's 2 episodes in and we've had some great episodes so far. I'm liking the tone, the flavour of the show. We've got some humour creeping in. We've got some good storytelling going on. It's shaping up to be a really good Star Trek series. And this week we had the story of a kind of Armageddon-style story with an impending comet crashing to a planet to obliterate it that the Enterprise has to rescue. But we've also got a bit of sort of spiritual stuff creeping in there. We've got a bit of a touch of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, musically speaking, and some self-reflection from Pike on impending demise and, and knowledge of the future, I suppose. So let's take a look at this episode and see what it was all about. So in this episode, we see the comet, which is due to strike this planet, Persephone. We've got some new aliens on this planet we haven't seen before. At least they've got good makeup. Obviously, back in original series, every planet they visited was basically human, but obviously now can do better than that. We've got new makeup effects going on. There's a lot of planets out there, so it's good that we're exploring different races and aliens and everything, and we don't have to keep visiting all the same ones again. There's a lot out there, so let's see some new ones like we're going in this episode. Now, the Enterprise has actually been to the Persephone system once before. On Next Generation, they went to Persephone 5 in the episode Too Short a Season, but in this episode, they're going to Persephone 3. But one of the staples in all Star Trek storytelling is the, let's save the pre-warp civilization from impending destruction episode. And that's what this episode kind of is all about, but with a twist. I enjoyed the scene at the beginning with the camaraderie and the dinner in Pike's quarters where everyone's handing around hors d'oeuvres. We've got officers drinking wine and Pike's marinating ribs, and then he's telling stories about chasing Nausicaans, which was kind of fun. It's a very informal crew I've found on the Enterprise under Pike. The command structure isn't very staunch and strict. It's very laid back, very casual. Pike's a very chill captain. The formalities aren't really there. He's all of the crew members seem to be more like friends. They're buddies. We're not really wrapped up in the whole command structure and formality, it would seem, as much as we have been in past Star Trek series, where we're a little less formal in Strange New Worlds. And I do like the tone. The tone is it's got a little bit of a sense of humour. Characters have got that sort of light-hearted edge to it. We saw Pike cracking a few jokes in this episode and, making a few little quips and a few comments about their circumstances. That was, a little bit lighthearted, and I think that's a good thing. I think seeing that levity in Star Trek has been a little bit lacking. Characters that can, poke fun at themselves a little bit, have a bit of a laugh, as Pike said, sometimes situations get so, crazy that you just have to laugh at them. And it was nice to see Spock embrace that as well in this episode, so that was fun. Good to finally meet Hemmer, our chief engineer, the Enar. That was a fun scene with him. I think he's going to be a fan favourite character. He's sort of like a cross between, Geordie LaForge and Odo. The gruffness of Odo with the blindness of Geordie LaForge. So I think he's going to be a fun character to watch out for. It seems like the stuff that we established in the first episode in terms of Pike's feelings about his own demise or whatever have certainly carried into episode 2. We've got him asking Uhura at the dinner party, where she sees herself in 10 years' time, and he kind of, his voice breaks a little bit. He obviously in that moment thinks of himself and where he's going to be in 10 years' time, in a wheelchair pushing buttons for yes or no, with half your face melted off. So they're not images that he's really doing him any favours on the mental health front. This episode was primarily an Uhura episode. We got to see a bit of Uhura's history and backstory in terms of her being brought up in Kenya, parents passing away, and why she joined Starfleet. So it was good to get a bit of insight on the character, I think. We always tended to have this in Next Generation where you would get an episode where it was one character centric, and they do the rounds of all the crew members. One week you'd have a Worf story, next week you'd have a Geordie story, next week you'd have a Riker story or something like that, and they do the rounds, and you'd find out a bit more about each character and a bit of their history, and you'd get to know them and love them, which is what they seem to be doing on Strange New Worlds. So I think taking that page out of the original series and Next Generation's book is certainly going to do them a lot of favours in terms of fans' character recognition and our bonding to those characters. We obviously get our crew with Spock and Lan and Kirk and Uhura being the away team that beams over to the Comet to try to see what they can do to adjust its course and everything, and obviously end up getting trapped there as the shields go up. Yeah, I think Sam Kirk needs to maybe take a read of the Starfleet handbook, like many of his brothers' red shirts did in the future of original series. You don't go touching weird things on planets. You don't touch weird flowers on away missions on strange planets, and you certainly don't touch pulsating energy orbs on planets either. And he obviously got himself zapped well and truly to the point where he actually died and they had to resuscitate him. Okay, Sam Kirk is almost going to end up a red shirt in this episode. But, Spock brought him back. So we obviously kind of knew that was going to be the case because we know he has to survive to go on to be on that colony with his wife and son when the flying, pancake fish or whatever attack in that episode of TOS. And in this episode, there's some nice parallels drawn, I think, between, people's scientific knowledge and scientific fact, and also spiritual and religious, beliefs and everything. We've obviously got the alien ship that comes to defend the Comet from the Enterprise and says, don't go touching it. It's got its thing it has to do, and that's their staunch belief that whatever, has to happen, and it's the will of the Comet and all that sort of thing. And Pike's saying, well, no, we can't just let that smash into a planet because that's going to kill lots of people. So there's that interesting kind of, debate, I guess, between, religious and versus science. We had some cool action sequences in this episode. We had some good scientific exploration with the away team on the Comet, doing the whole Close Encounters of the Third Kind routine where we played a bunch of musical notes and they sort of got repeated back, and that was sort of what they needed to do to unlock the code that the Comet operated under. So that was sort of a nice parallel, I thought, to Close Encounters. But we've got the alien ship, of the Shepherds defending their religious beliefs in terms of what they believe the Comet is meant to be doing versus the Enterprise's scientific beliefs. We know, well, this Comet's going to hit this planet. We have to save the inhabitants of this planet, because only science will save them. Whereas the other guys are saying, no, the Comet is a religious thing, and it wanders the galaxy doing its bidding or whatever, and we have to see how it's going to behave religiously. An interesting juxtaposition on science versus religion. Nice to see Uhura singing a few notes and a few tunes and so forth to get the artifact thing to do what it had to do. We saw Uhura sing quite a few times in original series. She obviously liked to go in the recreation room or whatever it was and sing a few songs, from time to time. So, she's a musical person and she's a linguistics expert. So I guess it made sense to combine a bit of musicality with her skill in linguistics as well in this episode. Interesting also that Spock was the one that had to sing the opposing notes and Lan just downright refused to sing anything, even though their life depended on it. But I guess, Spock being a logical being, and he plays the, I forget the name of the Vulcan instrument that he plays. He can carry a tune, it would seem. So there's a certain logic to musical notes in terms of harmonics and everything. So I guess Spock in this sense was the logical person to aid Uhura in the unlocking of the Comet artifact. We had some good ship-to-ship action with the Enterprise versus the Shepherd's ship or whatever. In this episode, we got some nice dogfighting. Ortegas got to show off her skills on the helm with some pretty wild evasive maneuvers there. And we also got Spock flying, through the Comet's tail and everything to do the whole Comet split routine thing at the end there. So there was a good mix, I thought, in this episode of sort of thought-provoking things to make us think in terms of the whole science versus religion debate. But we've also got, some ship-to-ship action and some nice character development from our crew members. And obviously a very interesting conclusion to this episode where we basically find out that the comet essentially was going to avoid the planet the whole time. And we found out this because it had a sort of a precognition image, I guess, of the exact shape of the chunk that Spock was due to carve off it to change the course. So it was sort of like a, what comes first, chicken or the egg kind of scenario here. But also very thought-provoking in terms of, was this just always the way it was going to play out? That Spock was meant to do what he did in terms of what he did with the shuttle to carve the piece off the comet. And the comet knew this, Quite good, I thought, the way it shined a light on Pike's predicament in terms of what they thought the future was going to be. In terms of the destruction of this planet versus what the actual future of this planet was going to be in terms of the comet avoiding the planet. Maybe this helps Pike come to terms with his visions and so forth because, as number one sort of said to him, fate is what we make for it, in the words of, I think it was Sarah Connor from the Terminator. Our only fate is what we make for ourselves. So yeah, I think Pike needs to listen to the words of Sarah Connor from the Terminator and realise that maybe it isn't all written as we think it is. Maybe things can be tweaked a little bit. Don't assume it's all going to be doom and gloom. Maybe there's a perspective at looking at what happens from a completely different point of view, much like the way they had looked at the comet at the end of this episode versus how they looked at the comet at the start of the episode. So yeah, there's some nice parallels in this episode and nice thought-provoking ways of attacking problems and, looking at outcomes from a different point of view. Guys, I really enjoyed this episode of Strange New Worlds. I think the show is doing really well in its second episode, and it's hopefully going to go from strength to strength in its first season and give us some really good Star Trek episodes. I love the fact that it's self-contained. I can talk about the episode and then next week we'll talk about something else. I don't have to spend half of my video speculating on plot and everything, which is great. It's certainly refreshing to have this style of storytelling back again. Guys, please leave a super thanks if you're able to. It really helps the channel out, much appreciated. If you can't, then that's fine. Just leave a like and a comment. That always helps as well. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and check out my merch in the merch store, where at the moment we've got free shipping. You can check out some of my merch and get a t-shirt or a hoodie or a mug or a cap or whatever shipped to you at no charge at all. So be sure to check that out while it lasts. I'll be back very soon with my next video. I'll catch you guys soon.